Hello and welcome to part 4 of Unit 1, Beginning App and Game Development. I'm Ben Geisler and I'll be showing you through the C# project that we created at the end of part 3. So this was the project. If you don't have this open, just go to your start bar, All Programs, launch Visual Studio 2010 Express, and then if you go to your recent, you should see helloworld.sln. That's what we want to open up here, and we're going to dissect this guy. So basically, at the start, the first thing to notice about XNA Game Studio and C# Visual Studio is we've got our Solution Explorer at the right here and our current file at the left. Solution Explorer shows you all the different files that go into creating the Hello World game, and whatever you have selected here shows up in the pane at the left. So program.cs, for example, will now show up as a separate tab. So let's start with game1.cs. This is the main game. What's going on here is this is similar to import from Java if you're used to Java. This is called using, and what it does is it imports certain libraries. There's a whole bunch of different libraries that are helpers for creating the game. So XNA framework, we've got audio, bunch of audio utilities, content for loading content, gamer services for specific XNA services, graphics runs, all the different graphics rendering, input for detecting input, and that kind of thing. Each one of these, so for example, actually in the graphics, sprite batch down here is part of XNA framework graphics. You can tell because I'm highlighting over sprite batch and it's showing me class Microsoft XNA framework game or graphics.sprite batch that's actually being used there. So that's how that works. And you'll notice that the next thing you'll notice is that we've got a namespace here, Hello World. That's going to be the namespace that's shared throughout the project. So for example, namespace Hello World program.cs is in it as well. And that's just to keep things running for XNA. All of your classes will be in that given namespace, and it kind of collects everything together and uses that as its namespace. And it's a similar concept to namespaces from Java if you're used to that. So the next thing to cover is what's going on with the Game1 class. So here's a class definition. This is the actual code that runs the game. Game1 is a class, but it's a class of type XNA framework.game. So XNA framework is creating a game for us. Game1 is inheriting from or being derived from this game, which has a ton of different things that it can do, and it's passing those things on to our game. So Microsoft has already coded up a bunch of things that the game can do, and then we're just inheriting from that, which is why we say public class Game1. Next thing to look at is the graphics device driver. This thing actually, if we were to do graphics dot, if you're ever curious about what these do, you can just type in the variable. So graphics dot graphics. So if I type in graphics dot, I see that I get a drop-down menu with various things that are inside the graphics driver, so like apply changes, device created, all kinds of various things that the graphics driver can actually do, including getting the buffer and all that kind of thing. So that is graphics device driver. It is being created here so that we can do all the rendering. Actually down inside of the constructor, which we'll get to in a little bit, it creates a new graphics driver, which actually means that it now can render to the screen. Here's a sprite batch. This is going to enable some sprites that can be drawn onto the screen, and then we added our font last time as well in video number 3 so that we could draw the text Hello World to the screen. This is called a constructor, public game1. This is the initializer. This happens whenever you call new game. So this calls new game1 right here from program.cs, which goes into here, and it calls this. and it creates a new graphics driver and a new root directory to work from. So from there, initialize is basically going to be something that's called after the constructor is called, and it's anything that we need to get running. So if we're doing any services of querying or non-graphics content, anything like that, we will do it inside the initialize function. Load content is what you would expect. It loads up the content. In this case, we're only loading sprite font 1, but if you had other icons or sprites or anything like that, you would load those here. Here we're creating a sprite batch, so this creates the sprite batch, and from there we go on and load into the content library by doing content.load sprite font 1. Unload content, we're actually not using it here, but this could be used to unload content, and we will do that eventually as well. The update loop is kind of the core, kind of the heartbeat of the game. What happens is it gets into the update loop every single frame. It runs update, and then it runs draw. So update runs, then draw runs, and then update runs, and then draw runs, then update and draw. That happens every single frame that the game is playing, and update allows us to do things like detect when the back button is pressed, and if the back button is pressed, we exit the game. There's actually other ways to do this. For example, we could say keyboard dot get state. It always auto completes for you. Dot is key down, and then we could throw in keys, which is button state dot. Actually, we want to say keys. We want to say here keys dot escape. So keys dot escape. So this basically says, now I'm just going to delete what other stuff I had here, and I'm just going to say if keyboard dot get state is key down, keys dot escape, then exit. And I'm missing a thing. So, and then that will exit. So this will basically say if the keyboard state is the key is down, then we can actually exit the game. And we can test that very quickly. Go to start debugging. So if we press escape, as you see, it exits the game. So this is called every frame, and it keeps updating. It keeps checking for if that key is pressed. Obviously, this is an important function. This will be where we start to process AI logic, for example, camera logic, physics of the player, everything like that. All the logic goes in here. The drawing is what actually draws to the screen. So this is like the logic section. This is the drawing section. So drawing actually draws to the screen every frame. The first thing we need to do is we need to clear the graphics device every frame so that we can begin to draw. It draws the color cornflower blue onto the screen, and then it adds a sprite batch. And this is what we saw last time, where we're actually drawing a string to the sprite batch with this toot font, hello world, with this certain vector 0, as well as the red color, and then we call the base for the draw. And that's basically game1.cs in a nutshell, and it's a very simple game. I mean, it's not really even a game, it just displays hello world, but it is running every frame, and it's ready to roll as far as game creation goes. We could start adding stuff here. There's other things in here in the solution. Game ICO, for example, represents the icon that's going to be used with the game. You can see that when we're running here up in the upper left corner. That's the ICO file. Also, we've got properties here, references. These are kind of more just for your information. You probably won't be messing with those for the most part. This is the thumbnail that's used. Program.cs we looked at a little bit. This actually has what's called an if-def. So this only runs on Windows or Xbox. Creates a new class for the program. And static void main is used for every C# program. So this is the main entry point of the program. And then we basically say we're using this assignment of game 1, game equals new game 1, and that creates a new game. And then we start with that right away and do a game.run. So we start running inside of there, and from there, then that gives us our game loop, for example, and we start running. So that is program.cs. Hello world content is what we used last time to add up this, or to load up the sprite font. I talked about this XML file that you can actually change, for example, the size on here. Let's just do that quick to see the results. So if I change that to 30, maybe just, if you following me at home, try that just to see that works. That changes the font to 30. So that's there. We've also got a references thing that just goes back to the actual importers that are being used. And that's the project in a nutshell. Not a very complex one, but it gives us everything we need to actually create a game, which is what we'll be doing next. Actually, first we're going to cover some C# basics, and we're going to talk about game development in general in Part 5. So we're going to do game development general topics, Part 5. I'll talk about a little bit of C# basics and what you should expect from Unit 2. All right. Thanks, and see you in Part 5.